Have you ever been sitting in a meeting, maybe it's a Tuesday afternoon, everyone is low energy, and the conversation is just spinning in circles?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like, people are using buzzwords, they're being incredibly polite, but they're just circling around this massive elephant in the room. It's like this fog has descended.
Oh, the dreaded polite fog. That is exactly where productivity goes to die.
Right, exactly. And then, out of nowhere, from the back of the room, someone speaks up. And they don't give a speech. They maybe say one sentence, 10 words, tops. But it cuts through that entire hour of fluff like a laser.
Yeah.
And the room goes dead silent. Half the people look relieved, the other half look terrified. But suddenly, for the first time in an hour, you're actually dealing with reality.
It's a moment of absolute clarity. It can be jarring, sure, but it's undeniably effective.
Well, that is the exact moment we're unpacking today. We aren't just talking about, blunt people or people with no filter. We are doing a deep dive into the specific mechanics of the personality that drops that laser-guided sentence. We're looking at the AWSU.
Also known in our source material as the sharp communicator.
Yes, the sharp communicator.
That is a fascinating profile. And to really understand them, to understand why they do what they do, we have to look at the system they come from. This profile is part of the max energy ME80 personality system.
Now, for you listening, if you haven't done a deep dive with us on the ME80 system before, it sounds a little sci-fi, right? Max energy.
Yeah, it did.
But looking at the documentation, this isn't about, like, crystals or vibes in the mystical sense, is it?
No, not at all. Think of the ME80 system more like an electrical schematic for a human being.
Yeah.
It doesn't just look at surface behavior. Like, it doesn't just say, oh, you talk a lot or you're shy.
Right.
It looks at the current under the hood. It analyzes how you process energy, how you store it, and specifically, how you make decisions. It's the engineering behind the personality. It helps us answer the why behind the what.
So our mission today is to open up the hood of the AWSU. We want to figure out the mechanics of this sharp personality. We really want to understand how they process the world and why those cutting remarks of theirs aren't just them being mean. They're actually a form of deep engagement with reality.
Right. And if you identify with this type, or maybe you have a friend, a spouse, or a colleague who fits this description, this deep dive is going to be a bit of a revelation for you.
Let's start with their identity and what the report calls the core declaration. The AWSU is defined as the sharp communicator. And there is this quote in the hero section of the source material that really sets the tone. It says, cutting through pretense with sharp wit, hitting the point with playful force.
Playful force. That is such a critical distinction right off the bat.
It really is, because usually when we hear sharp, we immediately think aggressive or mean.
Exactly.
But playful force suggests something else entirely.
It suggests a game, but not a manipulative game. It's a game of finding the truth. See, for the AWSU, language isn't decoration. It's not about smoothing things over for people. The source material uses a very specific metaphor that I just love. Language is a scalpel.
A scalpel. That implies surgery. You don't use a scalpel to cuddle, you use it to cut something out.
Precisely. You use it to separate the healthy tissue from the diseased tissue. And for the sharp communicator, the disease is illusion. It's pretense. They are incredibly sensitive to what the report calls field atmosphere.
Field atmosphere. That sounds a bit abstract. What are they actually sensing there?
Okay, imagine you walk into a room where a couple has just had a massive fight, but they're pretending everything is fine.
Oh, the worst.
Right, most people feel a bit awkward. But the AWSU feels it like a physical itch. They sense the power flows, they sense the fake agreement, and they sense self-deception instantly.
So it's like they have this built-in lie detector that's just always on?
It's more like a structural engineer walking into a building and seeing a huge crack in the support beam that everyone else is just ignoring. They literally cannot unsee it. And here's the kicker from the report. Once they sense that illusion, silence becomes nearly impossible.
So it's a compulsion. They physically can't sit there and let a lie stand.
Exactly. It's a visceral reaction to illusion. They aren't trying to be rude. They are trying to fix the glitch in reality they just spotted.
Which leads us right into their control mechanism, or their global vision. The report talks about them having a specific control philosophy. It seems like they are obsessed with the state of reality versus appearance.
That is their battlefield, the gap between what things look like and what they actually are. The AWSU operates by deconstructing illusion to push toward the truth. They cannot stand it when the collective decides to just believe a pretty lie instead of an ugly truth.
There's a phrase here regarding their control mechanism, using emotion as fuel and language as tool. Usually we think of emotional people as being kind of messy with their words, or logical people as being totally unemotional. But this suggests a hybrid.
It's a high-performance hybrid. Think of it this way. The emotion, that frustration with the lie, or that passionate desire for the truth, that's the gasoline in the tank. It provides the thrust,
Mm.
but the language is the steering wheel.
And if you have the gas without the steering, you just explode.
Right, that's a tantrum. The AWSU doesn't throw tantrums. They channel that high-octane emotional fuel into a very precise, very sharp sentence. It's a laser-guided missile powered by feeling, but targeted by intellect.
Let's look at the engine that powers this missile. I really want to visualize the energy matrix for you listening. In the ME80 reports, they use a radar chart to show where the energy is concentrated. What does the AWSU chart look like?
You're seeing a very specific shape here. First, the expression and drive axis is very strong. These are people who need to move and speak. But, and this is the surprise, their emotional bearing is completely stable.
Wait, really? Because the stereotype of the shark tongue person is someone who is snappy or moody or reactive.
That's the misconception. The AWSU isn't snapping because they lost control. Their stability is high. They are snapping because they have calculated that snapping is necessary.
Fascinating. And the movement on the chart.
The chart shows a coexistence of external and internal movement. They are active in the world, but there is a ton happening inside that you don't see until they finally speak.
Okay, let's break down the layers of this system. The ME80 system breaks personality down into IP, IQ, EQ, and manifestation. It's like the software stack of the human brain. Let's start at the bottom, the deepest layer, the IP, or inner value layer.
For the AWSU, the IP layer is defined as direction sense initiates.
Direction sense initiates. What does that mean in plain English?
It means that before they even open their mouths, their brain has already plotted the destination. They aren't just talking to hear their own voice. They know where the conversation should be going. If a meeting is drifting off course, their internal compass is screaming, wrong way. That direction sense is the spark that starts everything.
So the sharpness isn't random, it's highly directional, it's trying to steer the ship back to the map.
Precisely. They value the destination way more than the pleasantries of the journey.
Moving up to the next layer, the IQ layer, or emotional activation layer. The report says this is characterized by risk and consequence judgment.
This is where the sharp communicator differs from just an impulsive blurter. The IQ layer analyzes risk. Even though they seem to speak really fast, there is a rapid calculation happening. If I say this, what happens? What is the consequence?
It suggests a very calculating mind.
Yes. They aren't blind to the fallout. They might decide the fallout is worth it to get to the truth, but they have judged the risk. They know it might hurt your feelings, but they've decided the truth is more important than your feelings in that specific moment.
Then we have the EQ layer, the decision calculation layer, and the definition here is emotional containment and stability.
Which brings us back to that radar chart, emotional containment. This is crucial. While they are preparing to deliver that sharp, cutting remark, they're actually containing a massive amount of energy. They aren't leaking emotion everywhere, they are compressing it.
Like a pressure washer.
Great analogy. A garden hose with no nozzle just spills water everywhere, right? That's low containment. The AWSU puts a thumb over the nozzle. The pressure builds up, the containment is high, so when the water comes out, it cuts the dirt.
That brings us to the final layer, the manifestation layer. This is how the energy actually shows up in the world, and this is the one that stumped me a little. It says energy operates inward, carrying, absorbing, integrating.
It is a paradox, isn't it? We call them communicators, which usually implies outward energy, but their manifestation is actually inward.
Explain that. How can you be a sharp communicator with inward energy?
Think about the process we just described. They sense the atmosphere, which is absorbing. They see the lie, absorbing. They calculate the risk, integrating. They hold the emotion, carrying. All of that happens inside. The communication part is just the final release valve. They are sponges for information and atmosphere, soaking it all up until they have synthesized the perfect truth, and then, bam.
So they aren't the person chattering away for 30 minutes. They're the person listening for 29 minutes and speaking for 1.
Exactly. That inward manifestation is why their words carry so much weight. It's dense. It's been packed down tight inside before it comes out.
Now that we understand the layers, let's look at the deep analysis of inner traits. The headline here is literally, language as weapon.
It sounds aggressive, but let's look at the essence. One sentence to target. Beating repeated setup.
One sentence to target. That is pure efficiency.
It is. The AWSU hates redundancy. Why say in 3 paragraphs what you can say in 5 words? The analysis mentions their cognitive speed. Their thought and response operate nearly simultaneously.
That's that witty friend who has a comeback before you've even finished your insult.
Right. They grasp loopholes in minimal time, and they use irony, humor, and directness to deconstruct false consensus.
False consensus. Is that when everyone in the room agrees on something just to be nice, even though it's a terrible idea?
Yes. The Abilene paradox.
Yeah.
Everyone gets on the bus to Abilene, even though nobody actually wants to go. The AWSU is the one person who stands in front of the bus and says, wait, this is a stupid idea. They use humor or a sharp question to pop that balloon. But, this is important, the expert analysis says the intent isn't coldness. It stems from confirming relationship authenticity.
Explain that. How is being sharp a way to confirm a relationship?
If I don't care about you, I'll let you lie to yourself. I'll let you walk around with spinach in your teeth. If I respect you, if I want our relationship to be real, I will tell you the truth, even if it stings. For the AWSU, sharpness is a sign of intimacy. They are testing the solidity of the position and the person.
But surely this backfires sometimes. We have to talk about the shadow blind spot. Every superhero has a weakness. The report calls this one sharpness crossing the line.
This is the danger zone. The essence is described as words exit mouth, weight arrives after.
Ouch, I felt that one.
It happens when that emotional fuel runs too hot. When emotion ignites, language becomes a direct venting channel. And because they're so fast, the words are out before they fully process the emotional impact on the other person.
And the report mentions they use humor as a shield.
Humor and irony sometimes become defense mechanisms wrapping real vulnerability. If they feel exposed or hurt, they might make a joke that cuts deep to keep people away. It's a way to keep the scalpel pointed outward so they don't get hurt.
And the risk, according to source, is that without curbing this impulse, discussion turns into opposition and stalling. Instead of solving the problem, they just end up in a fight.
Right. They want to deconstruct the illusion, but if they hit too hard, the other person just puts up a wall. Then no truth gets through at all.
Let's talk about what it's like to be on the receiving end of this, the social relationships section. The vibe is described as being with you isn't boring, but worrying about being called out.
It's a mix of attraction and caution. People are drawn to the AWSU because they are clever, daring, and see-through thinkers. They put the tacit rules on the table.
Tacit rules.
The unwritten rules, the things everyone knows but absolutely no one says. The AWSU says them. That's exciting. But it also creates tension. The report says interactions are tightly paced and quip-dense.
Quip-dense, I like that, like a snappy movie script.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there is that dual tension. People rely on them for the truth, creating a dependency, but also feel pressure because they know they can't get away with anything.
So where does this personality really shine in the professional world? If you are an AWSU or you're hiring one, where do you put them? The business value section is pretty clear on this.
First and foremost, problem deconstruction and discussion facilitation. If you have a complex mess of a project, throw an AWSU at it. They will strip away the noise and find the core issue.
And direct speech for decision-making.
If you need a clear yes or no, they are your person. They won't give you a maybe, possibly. Let's circle back on this answer.
The report also recommends early warning roles in high-pressure environments.
This goes back to their ability to sense unreasonableness. They are the canary in the coal mine. They see the disaster before it happens because they notice the discrepancy in the data or the plan that everyone else is ignoring.
And culturally, what kind of team do they need?
They need team cultures, allowing sharp expression. If you put an AWSU in a polite, passive-aggressive corporate environment where nice is valued over true, they will wither, or they'll get fired. They need a place where truth is the highest value.
So, recommended careers.
Anything involved in deconstruction. Consulting, crisis management, investigative journalism, certain types of legal work, or strategic auditing. Roles where your job is literally to find the flaw and point it out.
We're coming to the end of our deep dive here. I want to synthesize this for you listening. We've talked about the scalpel, the inward energy, the risk of crossing the line. What is the ultimate takeaway for the AWSU?
I think the source sums it up beautifully in the conclusion. It's about reframing sharpness.
The quote says, when sharpness is understood as value rather than attack, the sharp communicator uses one phrase to expose illusion, making collectives unable to pretend they haven't seen, thus truly driving change.
That's the power. Making collectives unable to pretend they haven't seen. Once the AWSU speaks, you can't go back to the lie. The cat is out of the bag. That is how they drive change. Not by long speeches, but by making the truth impossible to ignore.
That is a very powerful place to leave it. If you have an AWSU in your life, treasure them, even when they stim a little. And if you are an AWSU, remember your words are heavy. Use the scalpel for surgery, not for battle.
Well said.
Now, just a reminder for you listening, this report and the profile we discussed today come from the Max Energy ME80 Personality Assessment Report. It's a really comprehensive system.
Absolutely. If you found this interesting and want to understand more about your own energy mechanics or explore the other profiles, you should check out their official website. It's www.maxenergylife.com.
And you can also find them on social media. If you're on Facebook, search for Max Energy, or you can search for Meta Energy. They have great resources under both names.
It's definitely worth a look to see what's under your own hood.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. Until next time, keep it real and watch out for those sharp edges.